Hi, everybody. Welcome back to He Met Me in the Middle. I just wanted to, before we do our interview with our very special guest today, make a quick announcement, and that is that I am going to be leaving the He Met Me in the Middle podcast as a host due to some very God-provided opportunities here in our hometown. And I now have two full-time jobs. So unfortunately, I don't have the time to do the podcast anymore. I know they'll have me back on. I'm going to miss them, miss you. And I'm just so grateful for this opportunity to have been a part of this podcast for the last 3.5 years. And I can't wait to see what happens as it continues to progress. But I love you all. Thank you for all the support that you've given us as I've been a part of this. And please continue supporting. And yeah, that's about it. Okay. Well, we have a very special guest today. So I'm going to let her in. And here we go.
No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is from me, says the Lord.
Today we are blessed to have Donna Nicholson on our podcast, He Met Me in the Middle. And she is a retired sergeant from Illinois, or that's where she retired from her service there. And she retired in 2021. And I'm going to let her tell you more about what's happened in her life and how God has met her in the middle all along the way.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of my history. And I'm going to start out with, the biblical end of my life. And for most of my life, I was what you call a lukewarm Christian. And that is the best way to describe me. My grandparents didn't go to church. My parents didn't go to church. We didn't go to church. Our kids really didn't go to church. If we were there, it was on rare occasions like Christmas, Easter, things like that. And then I knew very little about the Bible. I just wasn't in the Bible. And as a young adult and a child, I went to anger as a way to deal with any of the hardships that I had in my life. And fast forward up to 2010, I remember thinking at that time, I had a great life. I had a huge house. I had a handsome, great husband who was a great dad. My kids were great. I had the career of my life. We owned 2 franchises at the time. My husband ran those, and we had money in the bank. Life was just good. And then hell hit. And I look to the left because I've got notes here. I lost almost everything. And I went through 9 to 10 years of griefs, 9 to 10 griefs, basically all at the same time over about a decade. And that's when I began a journey with Jesus. The hardships lasted for a long time, but I learned a lot of wisdom and a lot of spiritual growth in that time. And God gets the glory for absolutely all of this. I began to realize that a foundation without God will crumble every time. Sometimes it'll crumble faster. Sometimes it'll crumble, later, but it will crumble every time. And in 2011, at that point, I had been a police officer for 20 years. And I held a position in the police department that was a very important position as the asset forfeiture investigator in the vice unit. And I held it for 10 years, and I was responsible for over $11 million worth of assets. My city was plagued with violence, gangs, drugs, shootings all the time, a lot of murders. We just were like probably every other city, going through the same things, but the general public doesn't know about it because real-time reporters just don't really exist anymore. They did back in the 80s and 90s, but then I started to see this huge decline where they weren't even aware of what was going on nightly in the city. So because I held this position, the department had a new chief came in from a different city, and I didn't know it at the time, but he was corrupt. And so he had like a little minion, because I was responsible for so much money. He had a little minion start recording me secretly in in the vice office, with hidden cameras, in 2008, and I caught him. And I went to my supervisors and I said, what's going on? Am I under some sort of investigation? And they just blew it off and made excuses for him and didn't take it seriously. But I made it perfectly clear to the supervisors and the guy that was doing it that this is not going to happen again. Like, I do not give you my permission to be recording me in my office. So, and the office at that time was like a big office with everybody had their cubicles, but this guy had placed this camera way up and hid it behind a bunch of crap so that it came down and was focused in on me and my desk. So I thought that was that. I handled it. I thought it was over. Come to find out, it never stopped. 2 years later, he was caught again, camera in the same place, way up high. And then they opened up an investigation, but it was kept in house. It wasn't given to the state police. It wasn't given to the FBI. It wasn't given to anybody. They kept it in house. So, that really concerned me because here you have your own personnel that are investigating your own personnel. And so at that point, I didn't know who I could trust, who I couldn't trust. And I didn't feel safe at work anymore. So as this journey went on, they found out that this guy had put a GPS on my car. So I couldn't figure out, I wasn't smart enough to figure it out yet because they were throwing so much stuff at me. And I'm giving you the Reader's Digest version of the Reader's Digest version. There was a lot that happened. And I just thought he was some nut at that point in time that was doing this stuff to me. But what it turned out to be was I found out that the chief was behind it. So it was a witch hunt. And they were trying to find something wrong with me to get me away from the money. So at the end of every story, you always look for the money, follow the money. I ended up fighting the city over it, and because they wouldn't fire this guy, which was another red flag. This is the second time now he's been caught and doing even more things. So I went to outside sources. I went to the EEOC. I went to the Department of Human Rights. I went to the Attorney General. I went to the state police, went to the FBI, and it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. Like, nobody helps you. So I had hired attorneys, and out of my own pocket, I ended up paying in total over $100,000, which I never got a penny of reimbursement for, because they covered it up, they lied, they pushed it under the carpet, and I was the only female in that unit, in that vice unit at the time, the only officer there. So the chief came up with this, we're going to rotate people out of their positions. So 10 years after I was there, I got rotated out of my position. Every other vice officer kept their job, but I went back to patrol, and that's like being a rookie. So I was still fighting the city, and during this time, my marriage started falling apart, and my ex-husband left me for another woman, abandoned me when I needed him the most, really made even more hardship on me, because I started getting vocal about what the city was doing. And our reporter actually found me through another officer who I still don't know to this day who it was, going to that reporter and saying, "You're not going to believe what's going on at this department." So the reporter reached out to me, and I wasn't even sure if I could trust him, but I could. He was able to put together even more evidence and did an entire series of articles in the local paper, which drew a lot of attention. The city, while I'm paying out of my pocket to fight the city for justice of what had happened to me, the city is paying for the guy that was recording me. They're paying his attorney's fees. And I'm like, this is so messed up. What is going on? And once I got moved out of my position, I realized this was about the money. Okay, it wasn't personal. It was about the money, because I'm one of these exact, by the book, everything's going to, in any accounting, uh, you know, in any accounting audit that they would do, I was always one that was to the penny, every single time, to the penny, to the penny. So the department, unbeknownst to me, was sending like little, I would call them gossipers, and they were getting in the ear of my husband. And at that point in time, I remember thinking how emasculated he must feel if the department and a bunch of police officers can't protect me, then how can he? And so I think that was the beginning of the unraveling of everything. So he started not paying the business debt, which I had no idea about. I was always really good about paying my bills since I was 16 years old. And 7 months after he didn't pay the bank loan for our franchises, I get a letter in the mail that says, you have, I don't know, 10 days, 14 days, something like that, to come up with $700,000 or we're coming after your house. And I was floored, absolutely floored. So, because I had always paid the house payment. So, I went to the bank. I went to the business bank. I went to the house bank. where the mortgage was, and I am pleading with people like, give me a chance to fix this and whatever. And it was too late. He owed too much money and it was just too late. So one of the first miracles that showed up was I put a message. I'm not one to put my junk on Facebook. So I put a message on Facebook and I said, please send prayers due to circumstances in the way that things have been. I'm going to lose my house. If you know anybody who can help me with a miracle, please let me know. And within a couple minutes, I got a text message from one of my really rich friends. And he said, and he's known me for years. And he said, Donna, how much do you need and when? And I go, well, and I'm being almost halfway sarcastic at this point because it's a lot of money. I said, well, I need $370,000 by next Wednesday. And he said, it will be in your account Wednesday morning. And I was just like, who does that? But it was somebody who knew me. And he goes, you're good for it. I know how you are. I know how you've been your whole life. And it was there. It was there. So I was able to buy my house back through the bank. They gave me first chance to buy my house back, which was half paid off at that point. And so as soon as I could, I was able to pay my friend back 2 years later with a bank loan. And a couple months after that, he ended up passing away. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the biggest first miracles that showed up. So I was able to stay in my house for another basically 10, 11 years after that. And meanwhile, the kids were traumatized through this whole thing. I was to the point where I was in bankruptcy court. I was in divorce court. I was in stalking court. I was in federal court. I was in another court. I can't remember what it was. Another kind of civil court. And all at the same time. And my best friends from the police department, and the chief knew who they were. He started promoting them. So they all got promotions and they all sold their souls. And I just couldn't believe it. I had been best friends with these people for 20 years at that point, and they knew exactly how I was. And they knew, on the streets, I was fair and firm. They knew that I worked really hard to get the position that I had. And then they were part of me getting put back in patrol because that's where the chief wanted me, was away from the money. So I ended up basically having to start all over again. I fought the city. I sued him again, and for the retribution of moving me out of my position. And they put the benevolent president, our union president, in my position. So do you think the union helped me in fighting this grievance? Yeah, no. So, I mean, it was all orchestrated by a very genius man. It really was. And at that point, I had the following of a lot of the guys at the department, but they couldn't say anything because they didn't want to be the next target. They saw, the heck that I was going through, and they didn't want to be the next target. So I had their silent approval, but they couldn't say anything publicly about what was going on. So I ended up learning how the court system is super corrupt. At the last minute, when I was in federal court, the city filed a motion for summary judgment. And what do you know? There was a whooskeroo of judges. And there was a new judge in there who had worked for the city 50 years prior. And now he was in charge of my case without seeing one bit of evidence, which at that point in time I had, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 boxes of evidence that showed exactly what I said, exactly what I did, exactly what they did, exactly what they covered up. And without looking at one piece of evidence, he gave the city the motion for summary judgment. And basically what that means is it's over. So I appealed it to the appellate court in Illinois, which is the Seventh Circuit up in Chicago. And I had 3 old white guys sitting on the bench. And they basically rubber stamped the same thing that the other judge in federal court had said, which again, they didn't look into any evidence. They didn't give me a fair shot at court. So it was one of those days where I was like, do I keep going to the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., or do I just stop and just quit wasting money on things that are going to be frivolous? So about that time, God brought me over to my table. I had a 8-foot table, and I had piles and piles and piles and piles and piles of all of these legal documents. And I went over and I started looking through stuff, and something popped out at me that just gave me that fire again and said, no, you can't stop, because if you stop fighting them, then they win and their corruption wins and the evil wins. So I ended up filing with the Supreme Court in the United States of America, Washington, D.C. And they have a basically how they operate is they get thousands of requests a year for cases to be heard, and they pick and choose what they want. And they didn't pick mine. So that was that. I fought it all the way up there as hard as I could, and nothing happened. So in the meantime, I'm being lawfared by the city. They would not, through FOIA request, tell me or anybody else how much money they had spent fighting me, which I guarantee you was close to $1 million over those years time frame. They just refused to answer any FOIA requests that talked about how much money they had spent. And so even pleading to the Attorney General, you get these just ambiguous, vague forms back. The FBI is the same way. The state police didn't want to touch it because they knew my command personally. And instead of sending it to another division, they just basically were like, this is so much evidence. Can't you whittle it down to a lot less than this? And I had only taken them 1 box. And I said, this is the whittled down evidence. And then they started rattling off the command at the police department. And I'm like, I can't let these guys do it because they're going to be biased. So apparently nobody in this state knows what a conflict of interest is. And I figured it out that they were all in a club. I didn't know what club it was, but they were all in a club. And I found out that basically it's just a wicked, corrupt system. Everybody rubs everybody's elbows. And it's one of these good old boy type systems. So I had to move on. There were days I didn't want to wake up. I didn't want to deal with anything. I wanted to stay home. I didn't want to deal with anything outside of, one of my daughters was already grown at this point. The other one I was still had at home. Um, I did the bare minimum. I showed up at, her school events and, covered the bills, covered things, but I wasn't the mom that I should have been during that time because I had nothing left to give. And I remember waking up many days saying, darn it, I woke up again. Because I was in just such a, now looking back at it, I know exactly what it was. I was in such a demonic attack that it was so depressing. It was so overpowering. And slowly but surely, God started showing me signs and wonders. And the more I was depressed, the more God would show up. And I remember one day I was headed to church and I was like, God, do you hear me? Do you hear me? And I said, if you hear me, show me something at church today that is so unique to me that I will know that, yes, you are hearing me. You see me. You are understanding the griefs that I've gone through. And I went to church and I'm sitting there, and I have a big church. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden on the screen comes this saying, it's a verse, not by might, not by power, but by spirit. I gasped so loud the church had to hear me, because on my garage wall, I didn't even know this was a verse. I just thought it was a cool saying. On my garage wall, I had written, not by might, not by power, but by spirit. And then I learned it was Zechariah 4:6. And I gasped so loud because that was so personal. And it was a true conviction of what I had asked for. And there it was. So I started to get more and more into church. And the more I got into the church, and I had to figure things out for myself of what was going on in my personal life, that the only way to deal with these hardships is through Jesus. And it's by forgiving the people that you're holding grudges against. And when I learned that, that made the most sense. And so now I know to bless the people, forgive the people, and let Jesus handle it. I put it on his hands and just let him handle, oh goodness, everything, absolutely everything. And the more I did that, the more peace I got, the more I would go to church and I would get in the Bible and I would learn, oh my gosh, the answers to everything that I went through, the answers were in the Bible, but I had to figure them out for myself. So as I learned how to forgive people, and as I learned how to battle these demons, I started taking some classes. Our church has a ton of classes that they offer. One of them is called Doing What Jesus Did. And in this class, I learned God gave me spiritual gifts that I didn't even know that I had. And I've taken the class 3 times now. I think it's like an 18-week class, but I've taken it 3 times now because every time I take it, I learn something else. And in this, I learned that I have the gift of tongues. Sometimes I have the gift of healing as a vessel through Jesus Christ. I definitely have uh, the gift of discernment. I've actually seen demons in my life, and I'm not scared of them. I just start praying to Jesus, and they go. I started making anointing oils out of Exodus with my Christian women friends that are, I mean, truly godly women that are very blessed. And we give them away to a lot of people. Um, and it's to take back dominion from the evil and to bless your house, bless your car as you drive, bless the bottom of your feet as you walk. Um, and it's all, asking for the blood of Jesus to be in your body and protect you. And my favorite verse is Isaiah 54:17, which is, may no weapon used against you shall prosper. And I say that one practically daily. And I learned it when I was going through all of the stuff at work and at home. Um, that was the verse that just absolutely jumped out at me. So I would say it every day on my way to work. And there were times when, I was down on my knees. I was repenting all my sins. I was asking God for forgiveness. I was asking him for insight. I was asking him for my purpose and what am I to do about, whatever I'm dealing with. And once I retired, I became even more into the church and I volunteered more for the church. And to the point that this really cool story, Sheri, this is the one you were talking about. This really cool story happened to me. I was sitting in my very first Doing What Jesus Did class, and there was a young man who had got up on stage with another guy, and they were supposed to be talking about like what physically happened to their body when they accepted Jesus Christ into their life. And he said that when he accepted Jesus, he felt like this warmth go up his spine and just an unnatural feeling when he accepted Jesus. And the other guy on stage said when he accepted Jesus, nothing happened. So they were giving us examples of how sometimes people feel something, sometimes people don't. So the young man that said the warmth went up his back said that his came at a price. He didn't elaborate. So he went on back down to the audience. These classes are usually anywhere from 80 to 100 people. We all sit at different groups in our tables. And at the end of the class, somebody said in my group to the leader, what does he mean that his came at a price? And she started talking and saying that, well, he was a Muslim and he was very high up in his Muslim faith. And he was to take over a very important position there. And he went to a university in our city, and the Christians from our congregation were at the Christian Center up there and had converted him to Christianity. And the Muslims came up there that were in the university, came up there to kill him one night. And I'm stopping the the leader at this point, and I'm like, wait a minute, I know this story. I was there. And it happened in 2017 when this happened. And I got a call that there was um, you know, some sort of trouble call up at the Christian Center. And in all my years, I never had a call at the University Christian Center. They had their own campus police, and they pretty much handled everything up there. And uh, my department really didn't handle stuff unless it looked like it was going to go pretty violent. So I get up there, and there's Muslims up there with bats, hockey sticks, bunch of them, 15, 20 of them, screaming, yelling. There's Christians outside, same, probably about the same amount of people. And the Muslims were trying to tell me that the Christians took their Muslim friend hostage and won't let him go. And the Christians who called the police said that's not it at all. There was a kill order that came over from overseas to kill him since he was converting to Muslims, or to converting from the Muslims to the Christians. So I'm like, well, where is he? And they're like, he's hiding in the attic. And I'm like, okay. So I had to think pretty quick. And I said, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to call in a bunch of police officers. They're going to come in hot, and they're going to surround the Muslim group and give him a hard time while we sneak him out the back. I'm going to go down the alley. The Christians had given me an address for a safe house. And it was out in the country. So it was the best I could come up with at the time. That's what I did. It worked. He was able to escape out the back while police came in, lights and sirens, and went around the Muslim group. I got him out the back, and I got him to the safe house. And on the way to the safe house, I was thinking, is this a setup? Did somebody get paid off? Like, as a cop, you just never know. You just never know what you're really walking into. Am I taking this guy to his demise? Are these people really good Christians? Will they keep him safe? So I'm giving him tips all the way there. Turn your phone off. Put it away. Do not get on social media. Do not get on any laptops. You're going to have to be like completely under the radar. And this kid's scared to death because he knows there's this death wish on him. So I get him out to the house. I was met by an older gentleman from our church, and I didn't know him, but I felt confident that he's going to be safe. So we'll call him Sam. So I let Sam off and drove back to the city, praying some protection prayers over him. Oh, but I forgot to tell you, when the old man came up to the car, he said, I prayed it would be a Christian officer that brought him out here. And I just kind of giggled to myself. So on the way back, that was that. I wrote a very vague report. I wouldn't put his name or where he was from, where he went, where I dropped him off. I left it super vague, but just to cover my basis in case something happened later on down the road. Hey, this was documented. We did try to protect him. So that way, anybody who does a FOIA on this report really wasn't going to get any information. So in the meantime, 5 years later, every now and then I drive past the Christian Center and I would think, I wonder what happened to that young guy. I wonder if he made it. I wonder if he went back to Muslims. I wonder if they killed him. I wonder if he went back overseas. I wonder if he's still in America. I mean, I don't know. And every now and then I would think about it, and in this class that I took 5 years later, it was him. It was him on stage. And so when my group figured it out, they're like, does he know? And I'm like, no, he doesn't know it was me. I didn't even know it was him. And so, because we handle hundreds of thousands of calls. I mean, we're a busy city. So we went over to his table. It was the end of class, and everybody's standing around with ants in their pants, waiting to tell this guy, like, this is that officer. This is that officer. And he finally gets done talking, and then they're telling him, but I can see it's not registering with him. And so I started talking to him, and I said, it was up at Bradley, and the Muslims had come up there, and you jumped in the back of my car in the alley, and I took you to the safe house. And you could see the light bulb go off in his head. And it was just the most miraculous moment. I'm like, how did God put us in the same room 5 years later and answered my question of how this happened? So that was one of my great church stories. The church thought it was such an amazing story that they actually made a mini movie about it and played it as the sermon at one of the uh, church Sundays for both of the sermons that they did that day. And now Sam is way up. He made it to a pastor in the church, one of the assistant pastors, and he is helping with a congregation over 5,000 people. And so his story is even bigger than that, but that's kind of the Reader's Digest version, even though it was pretty long. But he, every time he sees me, he gives me a big hug, and we became really good friends. So that was one of the miracles that happened. And then when I was living, once my kids grew up and I was living by myself at the house where I lived, I had 11 acres in the middle of the country. It was peace on earth. It literally was where I healed. But the house was too big. The taxes were too much, financially, physically, and emotionally. It was a lot of work, and I was so tired. And I did not have it for sale, but a realtor friend of my daughter's gets a hold of me one day and says, hey, I know your house isn't for sale, but would you consider, if I have somebody very interested, buying it? And I said, you're right, it's not for sale. And I'm really not motivated to move. And to be honest with you, it was quite overwhelming to even think about moving because it was a 5,000 square foot house with a huge outbuilding and a lot of land to mow. But I said, I'm not motivated, and I'm going to tell you right now, the price is going to be high. And it was only 19 years old at that time. So, and this just happened last year. So the people came, and the market here for huge houses was excellent. It's in the school district of, like, they claim it's the number one school district in the state. So finding a big house with a lot of land, close to the city, in the best school district, I knew what I had. And we had built it ourselves with the best contractors that there were. So I knew that house was built not like a cookie cutter house, but it was built with the best of the best. And so I ended up realizing these people were actually serious, and they were serious about paying a lot of money for this house. And I was like, it became real. I was like, where am I going to go? I have these dogs. Where am I going to go? Well, it so happened that in my little hometown, which was 15 minutes away, I was visiting one of my best friends. My car was getting worked on, and her husband pulls in and says, "Hey, there's a house 3 blocks up for sale, and it was built by the Apostolic Christians." And if you don't know the workmanship, craftsmanship of the Apostolic Christians, it might as well be built by the Amish. They take such pride in their work that it's absolutely incredible. So we called the number. The guy happened to be at the house, and we immediately came over. And it's a 1,600 foot all brick house, nice little yard. It needed updated a lot, but I walked through it and I was like, holy cow, this is incredible. This might work. And the price was so low. It was so cheap. I was like, what's wrong with it? Your mind starts going like, what's wrong with it? So very nice people, Christian people. And I went ahead and they put a bid on my house for a lot of money. And I said, okay, not only can I buy that house, I can fix it up. I can still have a boatload of money, be completely out of debt. I'll be 3 blocks from my best friend. I can revamp that house however I want it. And I can build a 6 foot fence in the backyard, a privacy fence for my dogs. And everything just worked out. My sister happened to be unhappy with her job at the time. And she does floors, ceramic tiles, the floating floors, wood floors, carpet, whatever. She's done that for 10 years. So she quit her job and I hired her to redo all the floors in the house. And unbelievable. She said, when she was done, she said, I have never worked on a house that is so square in my entire life. So I knew, and I already knew this house was built in. So then other things, just like everything just fell into place. All the way down to I had an estate sale at my house. They let me stay there for an extra 10 days after the sale while this house was getting finished. The people before I bought this house let me work on the house before it was ever bought with all of the upgrades that I was doing. And like all the way down to how many boxes I needed to move my stuff or donate stuff was the exact amount. And I mean, I made a whole list of things that were it was just crazy. Like God was in every single part of this move into this house. When I needed something done, somebody was available and I got what I needed. I got discounts on things. I got just amazing stories about little things. So as time marched on and I got in and I got comfortable and I got settled, and I realized that idolship is such a blasphemy. And I realized that I idolized that house that I used to live in because it was so big and beautiful and gorgeous. And I stayed there probably 10 years longer than I should have because I worshiped that house. And now that I'm here and I'm so much more humbled and I'm content and I don't have any of this stress on me, it was another aha moment for me where God showed me again, I'm still working on you. You still have work to do. And I'm all hungry for it. I'm like, I'm open to it. So I started volunteering a lot of my time, not just with the church, but I become like the Dr. Phil female version of friends, family, acquaintances, people that I knew from, the streets of the city. Everybody has my phone number. So I've become like, if somebody has a problem, I get a phone call, give my best advice, or go seek the best advice. I've done God talks in every single one of uh, my Dr. Phil calls, as I call them. Jesus comes into every conversation. I've been lucky enough to bring people that have stepped away from Christ back into Christ, and I've that's my purpose now. Because when you leave a public service where you really cared about your community and you really cared about the kids and the next generation and helping those that really needed guidance, really needed help. And you walk away from that, there's a period of time where you're like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do now? And I keep asking God and Jesus, like, tell me what I'm supposed to do now. Like, what is it? And then it just dawns on me one day, I'm doing it. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and more. I know there's more for me out there, but at this point, I just feel like I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I can take all of my training, experience, lifetime work, common sense, and now promote it into um, helping others get through the griefs and the things that they're going through. One of my most recent, uh, I would call it a miracle for sure. My oldest daughter lives in Arizona, and in February, she was cooking chicken. She put her grease on the stove and went around the corner to her little office. And she works for the government, so she's doing her top secret thing there, and forgot about the grease. And she heard a noise coming out of the kitchen, and she walked around the corner, and her kitchen was on fire. So she's the bottom level of an apartment complex. She was smart enough to put on mitts, grabbed the grease in the pan that was on fire, and kicked down her screen door and threw the grease out. And as somewhere in this process, she caught on fire. And by the grace of God, she didn't die. She was okay. It didn't get her face, and it didn't get her hair. It got her arms terribly. It got her legs, and it got part of her chest. She had to have skin grafts put from her own donor site on her arms. My youngest daughter is a neurosurgeon nurse. She and her husband flew out the next day and basically babysat her in the hospital until she could come home. I flew out 2 days after it happened, and I'm like, I'm in the hospital. My little one's a nurse. I'm perfectly helpless here. So I flew back home and I told my youngest daughter, when you tag out, I'll tag in. And so she got out of the hospital. My youngest daughter, and I give this by the grace of God, and her husband stayed for 3 weeks. Their bosses were extremely understanding. And so I went out when she was coming home, but I got to stay there 4 days with my youngest daughter. So she taught me how to be a nurse in 4 days. And I flunked miserably. Miserably. So Bria, at that point, my oldest, she was like, Mom, I've watched Kara do this enough. I can do this. And I'm like, okay. So I told her, I said, look, I'm not here for me. I'm here for you. So if I'm doing something wrong, not doing something I'm supposed to, or I'm doing something that's aggravating you, just tell me and I'll make it right. So I became the dog walker and the house cleaner, and I saw amazing independence come back to her from the time that it happened to the time that I left weeks later. But I told her, I said, I'm not leaving until you're completely independent again, until you can um, drive, walk your dog, change your dressings, etc. So I invented it's almost like a PVC pipe type of thing, because she has to change her arm bandages still to this day, 4 to 6 times a day. She has to pull them off, lather them up, and put them back on. But it took both of us to keep it pulled away when we were pulling them up, so that it wasn't like, raking across her burns. So I invented this PVC pipe. Nobody else has invented this thing. And I'm like, Bria, we can help people become more independent through what this, did for you. And she agreed. I'm still in the process of trying to figure out how that's going to work, but we definitely want to help other burn victims so that they can get their independence back as well, because she lives alone. She had nobody else to help her. So that was another one of the by the grace of God, by the grace of God. Her doctors all said she's healing way faster than the curve. And I really attribute it not only to God, but also to my youngest daughter, because she's a little brainiac. So, and she waited on
All
her
of
hand
these,
and foot.
all of these ladies here were praying.
Yeah,
I
thank
don't know
you.
if they totally realized, but you were praying for Donna and her daughter
Yeah, that
through
was
that time.
that was my
Yeah,
oldest. So,
yeah. Yeah,
um,
she healed quickly,
she
right?
did. She did. She
Yeah.
still has to wear these sleeves for a total year after the incident. So we're almost halfway there. But she has a different type of sleeve now where she doesn't need my invention. Um, it's, I don't know if it's like a silicone sleeve thing that she puts on now and lathers up, but she's doing great and she's healing well. Her mental clarity is, coming back to the point where she's just witty as can be, funny as heck. And I can see that she's, mentally back to normal again, because I was really worried about her at first. I didn't know if, it was, this is life-changing stuff. And for her to literally see her scars every day, that was a big mental challenge. But I think that she's realized that that doesn't matter. People are going to like me for who I am on the inside and what I'm about, and they're going to look past whatever scarring is left down the road. I gave her the Amish has a B&W burdock salve that, if you've never heard of it before, it is known for its um, power to heal scars. So I gave her that. All you can do is, I don't know if she's using it, but all you can do is lead the horse to water. And if they drink, they drink. And if they don't, they don't. Um,
So I'm curious, Donna, what is your favorite verse in the Bible now? Is it the same or is it?
I think I like Ruth. Um, I think Ruth is a big inspiration for me. And I love her devotion and I love her courage and her humbleness and her need um, to not only see the best in others, but do what's best for others. So I think Ruth is actually my favorite Bible person right now. I might change my mind, but I think she's for right now she's it. Of course, Jesus comes before everybody. Jesus and God come before everybody, but tangible people that were like us. Ruth seems to be my favorite.
You say that I'm
I,
actually doing a
I
book
can,
study on Ruth right now.
Are you really?
Uh, Yeah,
Isn't that
my
neat?
pastor's wife wrote a Bible study book about Ruth, and so I'm doing it right now.
Oh, I love that. And I like how, and I want to acknowledge each one of you for, because I watch your podcasts, um, and I'm not signed in, so I can't like and follow and share and comment on them. When my kids come around, I have got to have them teach me more about tech. I'm so old school. I am so old school. But I definitely want to acknowledge each one of you as I watch your podcast. Bree, your immense knowledge of the Bible so inspires me, and it makes me want more. I'm hungry for more. Like God help me with, because you can just rattle stuff off like really quick, and you can go to an example or a verse, and I'm just enamored by that. I think that is incredible.
yeah.
And Julie, with you, I'm going down the row of what I see, just so you know on here. Julie, with you, I get such a feeling of such a soft spirit with you. You have got such a great soul that is just so accepting. And I know that you went through your tragedy, and I'm so very sorry about that. But I also know that you've helped so many other people by going through your tragedy. And but I love how you present yourself, and I love how you made something so terrible that happened in your life into a legacy that you're moving forward with, and helping so many others, because that's what it's all about. And then Leigh Ann, I love your energy, and I love how intelligent you are when you come to um, keeping the feeds going. And I know you also had your own tragedy as well. And I love the transparency in the stories that you've told, and that you also have helped so many other people through your stories and the experiences that you have gone through, um, and the things that you make and you're trying to make to help heal other people as well. I do love that. And Sheri, I've known Sheri for, oh gosh, I think we're going on 5 years now. And
At
yeah, it's
least.
pretty close to it. Yeah, because we met in
Yeah.
2019. And it's funny how God puts people in your life. And Sheri is one of the people that God put in my life. And I mean, not only do we think the same and we bounce ideas off of each other, but what she has taught me about nutrition and taking care of your body. And I mean, I reference her on a daily basis and she doesn't even know it. When I'm talking to people, I'm like, well, my health coach says this. And, but I am so grateful for you, for our friendship and our, when we're bouncing ideas off of each other, all of the health information. You are the most wealthiest asset that I have going into nutrition. And I just can't say enough about you, because God bless you and thank you that you are in my life. So I definitely
I feel the same.
wanted to acknowledge all of you strong ladies and the gifts that you have and what you are offering out. And it may start out slow, but I've learned everything is not on my time, it's on God's time, and everything is not on my control, it's God's control. And everything is when he decides, or he puts people there, or he gives you that nudge, you need to listen and you need to follow up on it, even if you don't want to, even if it's uncomfortable. But the more in the Bible I get, the more I find my strength and my power. And now I'm to a point where I don't have any griefs in my life. I don't have, nor do I want any. I am dealing with a little pit bull who's 9, who was just diagnosed with lymphoma, but I'm throwing the whole kitchen holistic sink at him. And we just found this out. So I'm throwing everything I got at this little guy. He's my snuggle bug, the sweetest pit bull. They all are, if you train them right. But that's the only main concern I have going on right now, is saving my baby. So if you guys have any ideas, let me know, because I'm on Asiatic tea, colloidal silver for dogs, mush puppies, mushrooms for dogs, ivermectin, fenbendazole, and prednisone to keep the swelling down and get his lymph nodes kind of clear. So yeah, there might be something else out there that you have, and somehow get that information my way, because this one's a special dog for me.
Thank you so much, Donna. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you for speaking life over us, and thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been incredible to just listen to that, and I can't help but think this overarching theme of your life is just that, if it's the saying that, and I can't remember where, I think it's a word, Jewish word, but I can't remember what it is, but it's basically if it's not good, then God's not done yet. And it's just kind of you go through all these struggles and stuff, but what is happening is that God is still going to write the next chapter, and there's going to be something good that comes out of it. And so just seeing that over your life, that God has brought so much good, even out of struggle, is just so encouraging and brings so much hope. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes.
You're very welcome.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
My apologies for missing. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead. No, go.
My apologies for missing being late, but I'm definitely going to have to go and listen to hear at the beginning, because it sounds really good. So, and thank you very much. Great to meet you and to be here with you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You also.
Donna, do you do anything where people would have any reason to reach out to you? If you do, if you want to expand your Christian leadership into other parts of the country, give us your information and we'll put it in the podcast show notes so people know how to reach out to you if they're looking for a Christian mentor or something like that.
Basically, my mission right now is just to help people through what I've learned and the experiences that I've gone through. And you can use my email and have them put in the subject line, I don't know, think of something
Looking for the
creative.
female Dr. Phil.
Yeah, there you go. Female Dr. Phil.
That's what
There you
what
go.
we'll instruct them. Looking
There
for
you
the
go.
female Dr. Phil.
Yes.
Female Dr. Phil, and be ready for discipleship.
I love it. I love it.
But if you could also send us your link from your church for that
Okay.
story, yeah, I think that would be a great thing also.
Yeah. Oh, God bless you guys. Can I close this in prayer?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Lord Jesus, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to these four wonderful, gifted women that you introduced me to a while back, and that I learned something on each podcast from every single one of them. And it makes me hungry to go look up things or to help more people. Thank you so much, and God bless them for what they are doing in this world to make it a better place. And by following you, God, and following what Jesus did when he was here, and by helping, not just, I call it the domino effect or the ripple effect, for what they say. They may not think that they have, one-on-one conversations with somebody and meant anything, but that might be just the first person in a line of 17 people that needs to get that person to their walk with Jesus and their relationship with Jesus. And I ask for anyone listening that wants to know more about, details or has any questions, to please reach out to one of us so that we can help you as well. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, amen.
Amen. Thank
Amen.
you so much,
you.
Donna. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with everyone you know and love, and help us get Donna's story out into the world. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.